That was a lovely album leaf by Scriabin. Alexander Scriabin was a great Russian composer who did most of his work at the end of the 19th century, at the beginning of the 20th century. So we're talking about a piece of roughly 100 years old or a little more. Scriabin was a very voluminous writer for piano. This is one of his hundreds of shorter pieces. He wrote poems, etudes, mazurkas, and lots of other preludes, lots of other kinds of short piece. He also wrote 10 sonatas. And this is one of his shortest, one of many short ones, but one of his, I think, greatest short pieces, because it packs such a punch in terms of style and emotional journey in a very short time. We start off with a fairly sentimental tune, which could have come out of musical almost. And then he really, by the time he gets to the middle of the piece, he turns it into just a really wonderful climax, almost like he's releasing the tension that is built up by this melody. And we'll see how he does that. This is a tune. You could almost put words to that. It's sort of sentimental in a way, but in a very good way, I think. And then he continues the tune to a sort of mini climax here. Now he builds up the tension. Then he releases everything. Excitement over, back home. Very few composers would have been able to bring off a central climax as powerful as that and almost ecstatic as that in such a short piece. This piece has to be played with a lot of rubato. Rubato means pulling forward, pushing back. I mean pushing forward and pulling back, pushing forward and pulling back. If this were played in strict time, it would sound ridiculous. I won't go any further. That's the idea. It makes no sense at all. It completely eviscerates the emotional landscape of the piece. On the other hand, it can be possible to do too much rubato, and I shall attempt to do that. It's sort of what I call ladling on the rubato, and it's can make the listener very seasick, I think. Kind of thing. It's pushing and pulling you around too much. And in general, what happens when rubato is ladled on too much, you don't catch up. The pulse doesn't catch up. The good thing about rubato, well done rubato, is that the pulse generally can remain in place between the beginnings of measures, or at least between two measures. So every two measures, you might push forward in the first measure, come back, push forward and then come back. But at regular intervals, every 2 or 3 measures, the pulse will be there as if you had played it in strict time. And although very few people actually use a timekeeper to see if they're doing this, it's more of a natural feeling of breathing. If you breathe in, you tend to do it a little bit quicker than breathing out. So you get a feeling naturally of what sounds natural in rubato rather than overdone. And that's the important thing to do, I think, is to try and feel a sense of breathing in and out is one of the best ways of visualizing good rubato. So once again, just to go through the piece once again and guide the rubato sort of verbally, as it were. The first phrase slightly pushed forward, and then I think the next 2 measures take time to breathe out. Then push forward again. That's a wonderful chord, by the way. It's not really a climax yet. It's not far enough into the piece. It's now, if you'd just written that, it wouldn't have been as interesting, because then it would have been too obvious. So instead of that, he adds that note, typical of a Scriabin, to come up with something as imaginative as that. And then we pull back again. Building tension, then releasing the tension. So I think in the climax, it's almost like the tension has been released and the dam has been bust and the water just flows. And it doesn't require so much rubato anymore. And it's a nice way to vary the use of rubato by actually moving along here. The tension here is palpable. You can actually hear the tension being built up. Slowing down, and when you get to here, he actually writes in the rubato, and we've been slowing down a little bit there, but instead of just keeping it really slow, we can push forward a little bit and then pull back a little bit. So have a little bit of a mini event happening there with the tempo. But you notice how I just kept the tempo going in this climax. If you keep on doing the breathing in and out too much, I think what happens is it becomes unnecessary, actually. Because here we've got little mini rubatos every measure. Push forward, hold back. Push forward, hold back. Push forward, hold back. And then don't do the same thing, otherwise it would sound like this. Sound too much. Why not just push forward and just keep it flowing, or not even push forward, but allow the water to just flow. Slow down, push forward a little bit, and slow down a lot, and then we're back to bass. He writes in retard here. I like to finish this piece with that wash of harmony, we've come home to E flat major with a slightly blue note there, but never mind. By the time we get to the end, what wins out is that beautiful resonance of E flat major. If it's taken too literally, I mean, Scriabin didn't write any pedal markings in this piece at all. And if you take, obviously you're going to use pedal in general, but to then suddenly lift the pedal on this, I think is too dry. I've heard it done like that. I don't actually like it as much.